Ahsoka has come and gone, and we feel a little sad of the fact that Ray Stevenson is no longer with us, of course, but to a lesser extent, that also means that the future of Baylan Skoll a little bit in doubt, and we're not really sure what is going to happen with that character. Do they recast? Do they change something with him? Do they cast him off? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Not a little bit about that. We are going to do our speculating on that today on TRB. So welcome everybody to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. That's James. James, I do not envy Dave Filoni in what he has to do with this character that clearly I didn't find one person that didn't like this character, whether that's online or people I talked to. And of course, you know, the performance that he put in and adding to where we left off with that character. Dave Filoni is in a tough spot, and we're definitely going to chat about that later, but I do not envy him at all.
Nope.
Yeah. It's tough sledding. So how you doing, buddy? You got the Coca-Cola Galaxy's Edge shirt.
Yeah. Is that Galaxy's Edge? I guess it is.
Batu.
It's related to Galaxy's Edge, but I think of it as a celebration shirt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because that's where I think everybody got it. But it was when they were announcing that stuff. Yeah, man. You know, I think about Celebration Tokyo all the time, and I hope like everything comes together and we go. It just sounds so awesome, you know.
It's so
ways away,
far away that I don't even I haven't even processed that I'm going to Japan.
Yeah, it's like I watched that clip the other day of Filoni at Celebration saying "far, far away," and I was just like thinking, like, when's the next celebration? And I'm like, far, far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And what is he going to say at that celebration to drop like something, you know, significant that we aren't aware of in a casual conversation? Or
probably more details on the discussion that we're going to have later.
Yeah, probably. All right, let's get into this thing. First, before we do that, we want to thank everybody for listening and watching TRB. We appreciate it. If you haven't yet, check out our discussion on Part 8 of Ahsoka. It's on the channel or your favorite podcast app. And make sure you're subscribed to the show, whether that's Spotify, Apple, wherever, SoundCloud, Amazon, Podbean, who knows where. But of course, also on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@theResistanceBroadcast. And for our patrons, a lot of people joined the base recently, James, and it's very cool to see people coming in. I don't know if part of that's because of the disillusionment with social media, and we have our Discord server for commanders and up. But a lot of people are popping in, which is very cool. So if you have been considering supporting what we do here at TRB, check it out. Patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. Tiers start at $5, and we have a lot of exclusive content over there, including exclusive mini podcast episodes, live streams, Q&As, commentaries, the Discord server, a lot of cool stuff, poll chats.
In-depth conversations, sometimes like chats with other patrons, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
So
a lot going on over there. So check it out. Patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. And if you're able to, throw some support. We appreciate that. If not, that's cool. But either way, we are going to roll on with the show here. And James, the old faithful is back again this week. So let's get into it.
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
Will of the Force is back. That's right. Because this section is the one segment of the show where we pitch questions and choose from the Resistance officers on our Patreon and do the best to decide, will this happen in the Star Wars world or will it not happen in the Star Wars world? And we are going to kick it off with this one, which I think is a pretty good one, to be honest with you, John. This one here is, will we see any other planets besides Peridia in the distant galaxy? And I think this is pretty good, but that's why I want to hear what you have to say about it, because I'm interested to see where you think this could go.
I think yes. Because for the first almost 50 years of Star Wars, we've lived in this one galaxy far, far away. and we've seen so many cool places that looked earthy, of course, but then places that looked absolutely zany and wild, like Felucia and a lot of planets, whether that was in the prequels or Clone Wars or wherever. To think that we're going to all of a sudden open up this gateway and of storytelling to this new galaxy, and then just have this like very bland, desolate, rocky mountains of California or whatever as our only example of this other galaxy, I have a hard time believing that. So I think we will, and I hope we see some like other weird type of planetary stuff.
I'm actually leaning on no. I think the other galaxy is only serving one purpose, and I don't think it's so that we can open up new storytelling because we've exhausted our current galaxy, because I think no matter what, we can always go to new worlds and we can always do other things. This one aspect of storytelling was, where could we send this character where they can't just get to it by using hyperspace? You know, they don't know where he is, but once they find him, then there's no story about like, well, once you're on that planet, you're not going to be able to get off. You know, it just feels like anybody could get there. It's very simply, we have to make it so far that you have to have a massive contraption, or you have to be somehow capturing nature to get there. But once we get there, that's just that one spot, that one room. I don't think we need to explore that other galaxy. And it would almost feel a little strange, I think, to try to build the story over there where like the real purpose is getting Ahsoka and Sabine home.
Yeah.
So I think like get them home and then let's just keep moving the story along, because the whole purpose of that other galaxy has already been served. Ezra needed to be over there, and they need to be also like trapped. So
why does it have to just be in Ahsoka?
No, I understand what you're saying is we could open up those other doors, but I think the only reason the other galaxy was even brought in was to have a storytelling mechanic.
All right.
Not so much to like make it because we're running out of ideas over here and we could do so much more if we just open up another door and go down that route. I think it was only the storytelling mechanic of, you know, we can't get there using regular hyperspace. It needs to be that far away or that distant. It needs to be a impenetrable fortress. And now that we're out of it, once we save Ahsoka and stuff, then we don't need to go back.
We will see. All right, what's next?
We will see. The next question for Will of the Force is actually coming from one of our patrons, specifically Major John Bracco.
Yeah.
All right. John, let me know if I'm saying that wrong, or better yet, the correct way to say it. Major John wanted to know, assuming Shin is the new leader of the nomads, will her story continue with battling Ahsoka and Sabine on their quest to get back home? It's my turn to go first, and I'm going to say absolutely yes. I think so. I'm interested in how they're going to get Shin to come home with them, because I don't want Ahsoka season 2 or whatever, you know, to be Sabine and Ahsoka get saved, or they figure out a way to go home, and then Shin is left abandoned on that planet again. And like nobody's coming for her. I'm definitely saying that there will be more with that character. There's a point in showing that character going up over the nomads and saying, I own you now. I am your leader. And if that thread does not pick up in the next season, when she becomes the leader of this group who could terrorize Ahsoka and Sabine and give them a little bit of foil while they're still trying to get off the planet, I'd be pretty surprised. What do you think, John?
I still have this weird feeling that there is a chance this character could turn. I thought the same thing you did. She has to come back to the known galaxies, and that's gonna have to. The only way to do that is with Sabine and Ahsoka, and I don't think that's going to be as their prisoner. I don't think she's that type of character. Mm-hmm. So it could be a situation where, I mean, first off, I think yes, initially this will be the case. To Major John's question, and thank you for the question. I think it will start this way because you need something to kick off the next season, because there's not much else going on for Sabine and Ahsoka right now, unless we dive fully into what Baylan's got going on. So I think that'll be a good way to kick off some action for them, is to have that conflict. But I just have this feeling, whether it's like Ahsoka like critically wounds her and then sort of feels bad for her and brings her on board the Fulcrum and they fly, get home somehow. But I think she is coming home with them. And I really don't, I've said this before, and I really don't think Dave Filoni does things in Star Wars just to do them. And I think that scene where Ahsoka told Shin, "I can help you," is planting a seed of something for later. And I think that wasn't just there to show that Ahsoka's compassionate. We know she is. She's one of the most fleshed out characters in Star Wars. We didn't need to hear that from Ahsoka. That was told for us for Shin. And Shin like stood there for a second, and she clearly thought about it, and then she took off. So I think there is something happening here for her. I think we will see her still doing the villainous stuff with the nomads. Is that their official name? Did I miss that? I guess that's
no.
Yeah.
I just think that's what they are.
Yeah. So, but I do think there's a chance that she will make a turn here. So,
yeah, I will say one of the interesting thing is to think about the possibility that like if she does have a turn or something, and she like, I could see Ahsoka and Sabine like getting ready to leave, and they're like, "Are you coming with us?" And she like turns around and looks at the turtle people, and she's like, "I think I'm gonna stay." You know what I mean? Like they need me or something. Something along those lines. I feel like that storyline would only really work if we saw Shin doing horrible things before, and kind of like a Kylo Ren situation where like, if I go back, like, you guys know I'm cool, but if I go back, society is not going to let me come back. So I'm just going to stay here. But we never saw anything like that out of Shin. So her like self isolation, I don't think that really works either. I think she's, I don't know, man. I don't know about a turn, but I'm just really interested to see how she's going to get back, because I like the idea of her being that Maul character, that one that just continually makes the wrong decisions and always can't ever catch a breath.
Yeah.
Catch a break,
Yeah, that's true.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one here. And this is going to feed into what we were just talking about, because we want to know, will Sabine and Ahsoka return to the known galaxy using through the world between worlds? John, you're first on this one, and I think your answer has to be yes, because when you have a question like this, I go, oh, I know what he's thinking.
Do you?
Well, we'll see. What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Only
you want to propose it because it's your theory.
Yeah, and I'm not the biggest World Between Worlds guy. I really don't like it very much, unless they make it so that it's like where the Force ghosts hang or whatever. But they have just set so many things in motion with this series that I feel like it's just going to get weirder. So, and the fact that of Anakin showing up at the end there just makes it a more of a solidified yes for me, because why else would he be rolling up right now? So I'm going to go with yes, they will, and Anakin will sort of be their conduit.
Yeah, that it really does make sense. It's an easy way for them, like, because part of me goes, well, if the whales are coming there to die, like, isn't there any chance that they could be like, hey, you think you could drop us off or something? like they do go there to die, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not visiting regularly. I think we sort of established that earlier. So there are whales around, and couldn't they use the ship to go up and dock with another whale
and
again?
do it again? Yeah.
I know, but I mean, if I was in their position, I'd be like, are we not going to talk about the obvious thing? Let's just go back using the whales. We already did it. You know, you talked to them, you communicated what needed to happen. It opened up, it let us travel, you know. But I get the feeling that that's off the table. So what is the new option? I think you might be right. I think they might open up that possibility of what we sort of saw maybe in Rise of Skywalker, where like you could hand something over the Force. You could sort of walk through that gate and be in the other space. You're right that Anakin is there. He's watching over. I think that's the impression that we all get, but it could serve a bigger purpose, that he could be there to be like, you guys know how the world, how this works, right? You can just like, if you focus, if you use your energy, you can concentrate yourself back to that, you know, or whatever. I think there could be some wild stuff coming.
Ahsoka's like, hey, Sabine, shove me off this cliff.
Yeah. I've got an idea. You remember what happened before? Watch.
Just
Watch
kick me in the chest right off this cliff, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, we got another one from one of our patrons, and this one is coming from Commander Megan Powler. Polar?
Polar.
I'm bad with names. Polar. Okay.
Yeah.
Megan asks us the question, will Baylan be recast? And I think that is our initial setup to our bigger discussion. But off the top, I'm going to say yes. John? I don't want to give away too much because I know we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I think so. And I ever since I thought of this, I'm hoping it's Gerard Butler. I think he'd be perfect. Absolutely perfect replacement for Ray Stevenson, because you know we don't have another choice but to replace him if they're going to go forward with the character. So yeah, I think they will. I think they have to. So I think that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then, with that being said, let's close up the box on Will of the Force and let's head into our discussion.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
All right. Yep. We're all still reeling about it, but with the loss of Ray Stevenson, that begs the question, especially after we all saw the end of season 1 of Ahsoka, what is Baylan Skoll's future in this story now that Ray Stevenson has passed? In my opinion, one of the most interesting new characters in Star Wars in quite some time. But unfortunately, we lost a great actor who brought him to life, which we now know the Ahsoka ends with Baylan literally standing on the formation of the Mortis Father on Peridia, with the hand pointing out to some sort of tower with a shiny star at the top. Yeah. Now, his story clearly appears to be just developing after all the teases that happened throughout this first season. So where do they go from here? What do they do? You've heard our answers in Will of the Force. We both think a recast is happening. But let's dive just a little deeper here, James, in terms of where they could take Baylan forward. So maybe like a mixture of what do they do from a production standpoint with the character, with an actor, but also the character. Now, we touched a bit on the future of the character when we speculated last week on TRB Live. But to kick things off, we both said recast. I don't really care who it is. I would prefer someone who sort of looks like him, so that we still, feel like it's Baylan. I like a Gerard Butler there. Do you have anyone in mind?
No, not really. I remember seeing, I've seen a couple posts like on Twitter where they're like, what about this person? What about, and some of them, I don't even know who they are. I'm like, yeah, it looks like them, but it's always one of those things where like, can so-and-so carry like this prestigious actor could? And in some cases, you know, I don't really care if, you know, let's say Liam Hemsworth or something looks like him. It's kind of one of those things where like, yeah, but Liam Hemsworth playing that character is not going to feel like, it's not going to feel like Baylan Skoll, you know. It's got to it's got to be someone who can know what they need to do to pull it off. And, you know, I was kind of thinking one of the other directions that we could go with this is kind of looking at the times they have recast people and other times when maybe they haven't recast people and why, you know? Because I know there are some other things out there. Like, I think one that stands out to me is like the Gina Carano thing. Like they could have recast, but chose not to. And why would that be any different, you know, in this scenario? And I don't know, right off the top of my head is like that, you know, they set up things for that character too. That character was probably going to get their own series. And Ahsoka has got something set up, but probably not even like that big, as far as getting their own like spinoff. So, but it's interesting to me because like, I feel like the other story was like a political thing. And I remember at the time, like it felt weird because I was like, no other actress wants to be that character. And how is it different now? Do you think there are other actors that are like, I'm excited to fill the role? Like, you know, I still think that's the case that like they're going to recast, but do you feel like that would be a tough decision for an actor to step into the boots?
No. Only because I think it's very different going from an actor seemingly just losing their job due to, you know, certain things and there being a stigma on that actor's still around talking about how I got wronged, I should have been playing the role.
Yep, that's a good point.
Castmates, you know, still seemingly have good relationships with her in private. It's not all that madness and hysteria that happened on social media, which really just gained steam to the point of no return. Whereas
like you could almost
died. I mean,
yeah, you could almost get to the impression that like Ray Stevenson, if he were capable, he would be like, I'm so glad that so-and-so gets to finish my character. You know, I obviously can't. So they're stepping in and I'm so proud of them for everything that they did is like almost like something you could come up with. Whereas obviously in a situation where somebody was fired, they wouldn't be able to say that. They'd be like, that's my character. That guy stole it from me, you know, or whatever is how it feels. Yeah.
Here's a good example for like rock and roll fans. It's like AC/DC's
I had a feeling we were going to go with the lead singer.
Well, AC/DC's lead singer Bon Scott dies, and then they bring in Brian Johnson, and fans embrace it. They put out Back in Black, one of the greatest albums of all time, because people were like, our band is back. We're so sad that they lost their singer. We're rooting for them. And then look at Van Halen, where they kick out David Lee Roth, and they bring in Sammy Hagar, and a bunch of fans are like, that sucks. Bring back David Lee Roth. Boo, you know? It's just like that type of situation. It's similar to this where they're like Lucasfilm has no choice. He died. He passed away suddenly, tragically after completing this set of episodes. So I think it's that situation more like the AC/DC thing where us fans are like rooting for them to like, you know, because Dave Filoni's his first live action series. Like we're rooting for him to succeed here. He has this juggernaut character that everybody seems to love in this fandom where it's always so split on things and people hate a lot of things and people love different things. People are all pretty much like, this guy's awesome. And the actor passes away. So I think it's one of those things where if someone came in and, you know, puts out a statement about, you know, Ray was so great, there's no way I could fill his shoes, but I will do the best I can, people will root for that person immediately. So I think it's easier than, you know, if they were to attempt to replace Cara Dune. And also, Cara Dune was a forgettable character, and I literally mean that because by the time we got to the middle of season 3 of Mandalorian, I completely forgot about that character. I wasn't like, oh man, I wonder what Cara Dune would be doing now. Didn't even enter my brain. Whereas Baylan Skoll, if they pick up season 2 of Ahsoka and they start with part 9 and they're like, yeah, Baylan never returned from Peridia and stuff, and then we never heard from him again, I'd be like, oh God, that's such a sour taste. Like, it's just two different animals. So I think they, as we said, I think they are recasting. They will move forward with the story plan, because also, let's not forget, Dave Filoni got approval to direct a feature film under the Lucasfilm banner for Disney to finish this story. There's no way he didn't already have an outline set up where this character played a role in it. He would have to really change everything if they just took Baylan completely out of it. So I think recast seems the most logical. And then we have to decide, or not decide, but then we have to wonder how they are moving forward with that.
Quickly, because you did a great job at laying that out. Now, how is that different than, say, Carrie Fisher? When she passed, couldn't you all say the same thing of like, somebody coming in and filling the shoes, and we would all be cheering for her because we want Star Wars to succeed? It's like all the same thing. I know, but it's like it feels like it's the same argument, but then there's something else where you're like, but I feel like the only reason they didn't do that is because they actually felt like they could pull it off with some existing footage. And I don't think that they diminished her role in that movie, but they managed to still make it meaningful using the footage that they had. And I don't think they would do that for Ray Stevenson in a season 2 of Ahsoka, trying to finish up his story using old footage and CG and stuff. So it's like, there's something there that they go, hey, we have to have this character continue because it's not Cara Dune. But we can't just, sort of fake and wrap up the story using CG and kind of end that kind of quickly and just kind of wrap it up like we did with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
There's more that needs to be told here. So I think we're in that weird sweet spot where I think fans just rally around the idea of like, do you want more of the character or not? Do you want to know more about what was going on? He was standing on top of the Father's hand, pointing to the future and his destiny. Do you want to see it or do you not? And we're going to go, yeah, we want to see it. And then they're going to go, then we need somebody else to play the character. Sorry.
Right.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's why I think we are both landing on recasting.
Yeah. And the Leia thing is different, obviously, because, Carrie Fisher played the character for 40 years and they were finishing that story. And I personally think, as weird as it is, I think Rise of Skywalker was Leia's best role in that whole trilogy. I think she had the biggest impact on the story. I think even some of her humor landed where it didn't seem to, especially in Last Jedi. I felt like she did a great job with the footage they used and how they implemented it. So, but yeah, like going 40 years with Carrie Fisher and then in the final movie of this saga, being like, here's Julianne Moore as Leia. I'd be like, nope, absolutely not. No, thanks. So
Dame Helen Mirren as
I know.
Princess Leia.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Taylor Swift as no.
Yeah.
But and then Baylan, like we're just getting started with Baylan. So now it's like, well, yeah, they can recast him. Sort of like Richard Harris getting replaced by Michael Gambon, who also recently just passed away, as Dumbledore after the second Harry Potter movie.
Right.
So you get somebody who you can make him up
to do.
Right, exactly.
we have to tell more Dumbledore.
We need Dumbledore. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in these books.
We're not wrapping up his story and keeping him ambiguously out of everything from now on.
I know. Or they just film him from behind. So they're like, wait, Professor Dumbledore. He's just running down the hallway.
They only show like his face in like Harry Potter 8. It's like he turns around for a second and it's clearly he turns around and it's Harold Ramis.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So each situation has its own nuance, but I think with Baylan, we just got introduced to him. I think there's a lot more meat on that bone. And if you get somebody who sort of looks like him, and I really think Butler would be perfect. Gerard Butler would be perfect. Get the beard on him and the hair and stuff. He could really make it his own, but also pay a nice honor and tribute to what Rey handed off involuntarily, of course. So that's where we're at. And the question is, though, do they feature him less, keep the same thread, but maybe not push too much weight onto that character? Or do they say, rolling on, and we're going to put someone in here and they're going to crush it for Rey, for us, for the story, for Dave, and keep moving forward? I think that's the better way to go.
Do you know, I often get Russell Crowe. I already did it. I often get Gerard Butler and Russell Crowe mixed up. So when you say Gerard Butler, I go, what about Russell Crowe?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I also think he's great. I think he has a type of acting which doesn't feel like he has a different kind of weight to his acting than Rey did. Whereas I think like maybe you're right on Gerard Butler. He might be able to lean more towards the Rey and kind of do that. Whereas Russell Crowe would be Russell Crowe as Baylan Skoll. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
He wouldn't be able to like blend it as much. But I do think that you are talking about a very, very good actor who has that look and that weight that you could bring to that character. So that's maybe one that I'm throwing out too, Russell Crowe.
Yeah, Russell Crowe has the chops. Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people have said Liev Schreiber. I'm not sure. I like him, but I'm not sure about him for that role. But yeah, I mean, they'll find somebody, and I trust Dave Filoni because look at the casting choices he made just for this first season alone. I think he knocked almost every one of them out of the park. So keep that instinct when you go to make this very delicate and sensitive change. Now, as far as the future of Baylan Skoll, we touched on it on TRB Live, but to just dive a bit deeper on it, do you think they're going full Mortis 2.0, or is it going to be Mortis but different?
I think it's going to be Mortis but different.
I feel like you sort of poked at that on TRB Live. So if you want to expand on that, like, so you're saying not father, son, daughter, but something similar, but not the same.
Yeah, I did throw out that idea because I speculate often just the same as everybody else. And I think there's been a current mindset that we've been put in where we're thinking that we know where this is all going. The father, the son, and the daughter are actually going to sort of be replaced by characters that we know. So who are they going to be replaced by? Okay, Ahsoka. Oh, she's the life force of the daughter, so she's the daughter. Okay, well then who would be the father and who would be the son? And we're trying to figure it all out. I think there's always just the possibility that Dave or George would be like, nope, that was never the plan. I don't know where that came from, but we never intended that. Yes, it's true that part of our story was that we said that the father, or that Anakin was supposed to replace the father. He said that you're supposed to take my spot. But they also said in the same breath that if you don't do that, then bad things are going to happen in the galaxy. And Anakin didn't do that. He chose not to, and bad things happen in the galaxy. So that story of Anakin taking over the father position has played out. Now, obviously you can do anything. You could bring that back and say like, oh, well, he eventually, prodigal son, he obviously did come back and became the father, after so-and-so thing or whatever. And that rounds it all out. But I do think that there is this other thing that we need to consider, which also I'll mention too, if you weren't able to see the TRB Live episode, I was playing into the Baylan Skoll is actually my theory for the son. So you got Anakin in the middle, Ahsoka on the light, and Baylan Skoll on the right. And then that sort of, it gives you reason to have Baylan as the villain because it all sort of leads to that thing. But I will say this, I think there is a possibility that Baylan, that's just a fictional thing that we're making up. And Baylan's story is to just pursue that power. And maybe like, I don't know, maybe he meets up with some of these characters who are in a different form, because I think they even said something in the episodes, the Mortis episodes, about the form that we take is just a product of our surroundings or something like that, which is weird because you obviously got murals to them and in those forms. So I don't know, man. It's so cool to see the statues and just know that there's all this history and there's been people or whatever who worshiped them as gods, or maybe they created those things to be like, this is the way to get to us, or something. I don't know, man. It's just lore and it's awesome. And I'm very excited to see what could happen with Baylan Skoll as a character who goes, if that's true, and I think it is because I am now on Peridia and I've now found the statue and I see the light in the horizon, those fairy tales, those fictional dreams of stories of this power that's incomprehensible but obtainable, he's going after it. And it's such an interesting story. Light or dark doesn't even matter. It's about this character going on his own personal journey to find his dream or his destiny,
Yeah.
Or we could just pretend it didn't happen and not recast.
Well, yeah. But are you still on the Anakin is going to be a part of it? Because the way I see it as, and I haven't watched, the Mortis arc is one of the sets of episodes of Clone Wars I've watched. I haven't watched all of Clone Wars. I've watched a lot of it, but a long time ago. But Mortis is the one I think I've watched a few times. But Anakin, he restores balance by killing the son because the daughter died and the father kills himself, right? With the dagger.
So I feel bad because I wanted to watch all three before the conversation today and I was only able to watch two of them. I seem to remember that the son was dead.
Anakin kills the son.
Daughter. Anakin kills the son.
Yeah.
So the son and the daughter are dead, but I don't think the father is.
I thought the father killed himself to spite his son or something.
Yeah, I wish we had the knowledge right now.
Well, I could probably look it up quick.
But what's your position?
Well,
You're
I guess
asking me if I think Anakin is still in play here.
Yeah, because the reason why I don't think he is what I said on TRB Live, that I feel like Anakin's story is done. He's more of a legacy person to support other characters now. Mm-hmm. And he essentially achieved what he needed to achieve on Mortis, which was restoring balance by killing the son. So I think his relationship with that is done. So I don't think he's going to be involved with this. I think he showed up to sort of, like we were saying in Will of the Force, help Sabine and Ahsoka get home. I don't think reintroducing Anakin to new complexities is how they want to move forward with Anakin, because they like the idea that Anakin is pure now. His story was told. Yes, there was the experience that Ahsoka had in World Between Worlds, but that's not fully real. That's, what that was, whatever that was, lives within the World Between Worlds. So I can't see them muddying him up and reintroducing him to this. But tell me why you think otherwise if you think Anakin is going to be a part of it. Also, does he overshadow Baylan if he is a part of it?
So the reason I think Anakin still could be a part of it is mostly because it just fits so perfectly with the balance aspect of the story. He was once asked to be the father. Fathers, traditionally stand over the daughter, as Anakin stood over Ahsoka. master and apprentice relationship. And the only there's obviously routes that you could take where you're like, well, then he walked away from it. But I don't think that even dying still does not necessarily mean to me that that's the end of a character's journey, especially now since we know that Anakin is rejoining Ahsoka in physical form in some ways, you know, to still participate in what needs to be participated in. That's a weird way to say what I'm saying it, but it's almost like he's as an embodiment of the living force is still watching life go on. And he's like, oh, things need to still be happening. And he's still part of that story. He's coming back to tell her new things. And, you know, he's watching over her and Sabine after they got abandoned on Peridia. And so he's obviously involved as, you know, just as much as say like Ben was involved, you know, in Luke's life. He's there to help and interfere and guide and other things like that. So Anakin, the entity, still exists. He just exists on a higher plane now.
Yeah.
And so I think honestly, the biggest thing for me is the father saying, when I heard the chosen one had been born or created or whatever, I was like, oh, I got to talk to this dude. He's the one who's supposed to replace me. If that is that also a prophecy that is needs to come true? Because if Anakin ultimately does walk away from the father, what is the story with the father? It was prophesied that the chosen one would replace him. So is he eternally now the father, stuck in that position? Is that prophecy not true? Is there a different chosen one that, you know, that probably doesn't feel right with Star Wars. I don't think that later down the line they're going to be like, well, Rey's the real chosen one.
Oh no, yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I just, you know,
I mean,
it's tricky to me, and I'm like, so I feel like Anakin as a entity is still in play.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just don't know how. I don't know. That's tough because of just how his main story ended. I like him showing up and helping people, but I don't know about him having a new arc or what have you after his story nicely concluded with saving his son and stuff. But
it does say that the father mortally wounded himself so that Skywalker could deliver a killing blow to the son.
Yes. Okay.
So the father, the son, and the daughter all dead. But then
daughter's
Baylan
life force saves Ahsoka.
Yeah, but that may be it. That might be it. Life for life. It's not like she's eternally connected to her. It's not like the daughter is living in her. It's just like,
well, think of it like this. Does Baylan know about all that? Does he know that Ahsoka was the life force of the daughter saved Ahsoka's life, and that's, you know, she's followed around by the convors and Morai.
I don't think anybody does. I don't think Ahsoka.
I know, but by George Lucas's definition, true balance of the Force is destroying the dark side, and that was Anakin's prophecy. If only the daughter's spirit lives, is Ahsoka the embodiment of the balance in the Force, and is Baylan trying to get to Mortis without him realizing it? Because he said, I don't like the idea of repeating with the Jedi and the Sith and stuff. He's like, I want to start something new. Him not knowing that, he will essentially disrupt the balance of the Force by creating any sort of dark entity or being any sort of dark side presence, offsetting that. Because I do believe if, you know, George Lucas penned to paper, Obi-Wan telling Anakin, you were the chosen one. It was told you would destroy the Sith and not join them. That was the prophecy. Destroy the Sith, restore balance, the light side lives. I never saw balance of the Force as light and dark have an even hand. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know
We've
how
had that discussion. We've probably had a
Yeah.
lot of new patrons since then, but yeah. My
new listeners,
quickest,
not even patrons, but
oh yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, I mean like new people that never heard that old discussion. But my simplest explanation when I get into the discussion with people is I always say it's like two baseball teams, and that's balance. You got this baseball team and this baseball team, and the cheaters are the dark side. When you eliminate the cheaters, you can bring balance back to the game. They can, this team can win sometimes, this team can win sometimes. But as soon as some of those players start cheating, it throws the balance of the game off. And restoring balance is not like you have to have a team full of cheaters and a team full of rule followers. That's not the game. That's not balance. You have to have two. Yeah, everybody has to be a rule follower. It's the people who are not following the rules that are throwing everything off, and restoring balance would be eliminating the bad.
I know. And we can get really wild with speculating on this because we ultimately don't know how far they're going to take it. There's a chance Baylan goes on this journey and he gets there and there's nothing, or he's expecting something that is there and that it isn't, or we don't really know. Mm-hmm. So we're doing this under the idea that there is a future for Mortis.
Also, don't forget that Mortis is not Peridia.
No, yeah,
because Mortis was in a random location that Rex was there
in the known galaxy.
And they were like, where are we at? And then we're both in the same place, but we're clearly not in the same place. And then all of a sudden there's a double-sided pyramid floating, and they get pulled into that, and it's this whole thing. So it's like if Peridia, it seems like Peridia is sort of like the origin of maybe something relating to Mortis or to these Force wielders, but at the end of the day, like, they left there a long time ago. So it's not like he's gonna walk over that cliff and be like, "Oh, Father, there you are."
Right.
I almost feel like the power. So again, sorry, I feel like I'm just going off on a rant tonight.
No,
it's all these things are firing in my head as we talk about it.
Well, the mountain statues of the two of them, I don't know what that means about the daughter one not being there or whatever. Is that because the daughter still lives within Ahsoka? I don't know. But to me, that's just a symbol of this is ancient. And the same way the statues of the laying Jedi on Jeddah, it's like it's this ancient thing. And it's that symbol of that. So I think you're right that sort of, whether it's Peridia, like what if, because Peridia seems like this very barren place. What if Peridia was initially the organic version of where those three were, and then, through the Force, they descend to Mortis, and that is an interdimensional thing. I don't know. It's getting wild. It's getting nerdy and it's getting weird.
Let me get out this thought before I forget it, because I had some questions on TRB Live where like, this doesn't line up. What's the story here? When Baylan Skoll talks about this thing that he's pursuing, he's like, power, what's the line? Power that we could never dream of, or something,
More than you've ever dreamed. Yeah.
More than you have ever dreamed. He's talking about this thing, whatever it is. And now that we're looking at him standing on top of the statue of the Father, the Son, and we're like, oh, the fairy tales must be Mortis and the Father and the power of the balance and all this other stuff. But I don't think that's the case. I think because what fairy tale was Baylan Skoll being told in school that Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka all had never heard of? Because when they showed up to Mortis, granted, when it was all done, they've forgotten about it. But When they showed up to Mortis, they didn't know who any of these people were. They'd never encountered anything of those stories or heard anything about them. They found out about them, and then when it was all done, their memories were erased. So they can't even go back and start telling people about these crazy beings that were out there. Nobody knows about the father, the son, and the daughter, you know, as far as like main characters go. There's lore, obviously, some people know, but not our main characters, not the Jedi, stuff like that. Yeah. I have a feeling that the story of the power is just of that. It's like, oh, there is a big diamond that has all this crazy power, or a sword or something, whatever it is, and it's there. And when you're on your way there, you're looking, you know, at the hieroglyphics and the things on the side, and you're seeing all these images of things that we know what they are because we've been paying attention to multiple stories in Star Wars. But to Baylan walking through, he isn't looking at those statues and being like, boom, father, son, daughter. Yep, that's the story I heard. I'm on the right path. I think he just sees those statues and going, what are they pointing to? They must be pointing to that ultimate power that I've heard about.
I feel like I need to rewatch Ahsoka just to revisit all of Baylan's dialogue.
Yeah, we need a 10-minute montage of just everything that he said. It wouldn't even be 10 minutes. It would be like 3.
Yeah.
All his lines.
Didn't he say something about something calling to him? Or I feel like it was something like that.
I know Morgan said that Thrawn was calling to her.
Yeah. I thought he said something like that. And how would he know that there was a power greater? You know what I mean? Like, he's not just guessing. He knows something. So, I definitely got to rewatch Ahsoka, literally just for understanding, trying to connect the dots on Baylan's journey.
It's like somebody saying, it's like somebody telling you and you growing up that there is this other world called Wonderland, and it's this crazy place where all this stuff happens, you know what I mean? But they don't really give you any of the specifics because they just know that Wonderland exists and it's this crazy place. And you're like, oh, well, Wonderland doesn't really exist. But then suddenly one day somebody's like, oh yes, this pathway, it's the path to Wonderland. And you're like, what? Wonderland? You don't know anything about the White Rabbit. You don't know anything about Tweedledee and Tweedledum. But when you're there and you're like, you're in Wonderland, you're looking around, you're seeing all these things. And we as the audience know, yeah, that's the White Rabbit. Oh yeah, that's Tweedledee, Tweedledum. He's obviously in Wonderland. He's obviously on the path. But that character is just like observing what's around him. The only thing he's chasing after is that land, or what, you know, has been told to him about that land. What's in Wonderland.
Who told him?
That's what... Yeah, and that's another good question, is like, how did the stories come to be? Which again proves my point of like, I don't think it's so much about Mortis or the father, the son, or whatever. I think there's just like a bigger, greater story about this power that's in this other land in a distant galaxy, you know? And it sounds made up, but you know, we're watching the character walk that path and run into other entities that we've encountered because of other stories, you know, that back up the truth of that place and that power. But I don't think we've been introduced to what it actually is yet.
Yeah.
Like the father, or being the father, might not be the ultimate power. He just might be a character in the story of that ultimate power, you know? Maybe it is Abeloth or whatever, you know? When he unleashes that power, then this creature, this power, this entity has been released into the galaxy or something like that, and maybe he controls it. But it's one of those things where like it existing on its own, you don't need to know that Abeloth was the mother. You don't need to know that these other characters exist. They just are part of the story around what they're telling now.
Is Mortis integral to the existence of the Force, or is it a trial for those worthy to understand what it means for the Force to be in balance? Like, in other words, is it a tangible thing, but it is a metaphor for the Force and how it covers the universe? Because now we know the Force exists in multiple galaxies. Because like when they come out of there and time didn't change and they don't remember it, I always sort of saw it as that type of thing, almost a more complex version of, Luke going to the cave, or those sort of trials that we saw Jedi go through. So I think we're going to learn more about it. I'm just a little nervous at how far they take it. Now, Baylan's not going to go there alone. There has to be others involved. So, like, is there any chance, like, Ahsoka and Sabine, maybe they don't go home through the world between worlds because Filoni doesn't want the world between worlds to be that easy, because I think he spoke sort of to limiting the world between worlds to be responsible in his storytelling. What if they go wherever Baylan's going? What if they're not done with him yet? And they get involved in this. So there's so many different ways it can go. I just can't see Baylan going by himself. I can't see a reunion with Shin in that regard. I think he has a different path, and he made that clear. So as I think of it now, I can't help but think that Ahsoka will be pulled into this some way, and Sabine.
I do think that it is very possible that the next arc of the story could be... I don't want to spend all this time on Peridia, but, is season 2... No, because Thrawn has to be part of Ahsoka, too. You can't have the whole story be, them chasing after and trying to stop Baylan from unleashing this ultimate power, and we're going to watch all of season 2 and be like, but Thrawn, what is he doing? Maybe unless Thrawn is about to just move over into Mandoverse full stop.
Yes.
Like maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe Thrawn is the villain for Mando season 4. And when we come back to Ahsoka, they're like, Thrawn's not even a part of this.
And that's why they killed Gideon.
Yeah.
Get him out from a story perspective. Get him out of the way. Thrawn comes in. You incorporate, dangers now and you could use Hera more, and Jason, and, maybe Zeb, or, who knows. But because they spent so much time on Peridia, Hera sort of took a bit of a back seat. Now you get her more involved. You get people more concerned about her. Ezra's there. Ezra's going to be there fighting Thrawn, or helping the new Republic in however way he can. We're going to see live action Dathomir. So they're going to have to thread that needle going back and forth between Peridia and the known galaxy more than they did in the back half of Ahsoka, where it was like 90% Peridia, 10%, or maybe even less, 10% known galaxy. And the more we talk about it, the more I just don't see how they can't do an Ahsoka season 2, because you can't just go from this into that movie. And I think these stories and these characters are too big to just try to pepper them into Skeleton Crew or Mando 4, which Mando 4 is already loaded with a lot of characters. Just Mandalorian in general. So much so that even the Mandalorian himself took a little bit of a back seat in Mando season 3.
Yeah. Bo-Katan was almost the Mandalorian for that season.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not really sure. I feel like we're just scratching the surface here, but as we learn more, we'll have to expand upon it. But I don't know. It's interesting.
The one thing we haven't done is, we talked a little bit about Carrie Fisher to begin with, but I remember we had there was maybe 5 possibilities we had thought through. We're like, they could recast, they could use old footage, they could ignore, just write her off the scene.
She dies off screen.
Yeah, we're going back to the original point. I think no matter what we do, when we're discussing Baylan, I think it's a disappointment in all categories unless you recast. I think that's the only thing that you can do in this case. So I do think that they're going to do that, and we're going to get that story, which then means, what is that story? I mean, you don't think this was always the story for Dave? Like Ray's still alive, everything's fine, and he's like, he obviously wrote what was on screen. Was his story to be that Ray walks off into the sunset to go find something, and that's the end of it? That's how that's his perspective on writing off that character? I don't think so.
No, I don't either.
It feels weird. It feels empty. And maybe that would be bad. That would be bad writing on Dave's part, where he was like, well, I hate to say it, but like, that was always my intention, that he just rides off into the sunset, and we never, it was supposed to be.
Well, we know it wasn't his intention, because Ray Stevenson said, like, he's going on a journey and I'm not sure where it's going yet, but I'm excited to find out, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And again, there's no way. I'm not saying he had to tell everybody what every character was doing, but he had to have delivered something concrete in order for Disney to greenlight him directing a movie, a feature film for this big IP. And he had to have been like, check out this series, this Ahsoka series. And they're probably like, oh my God, this character's great. I can't wait to see him on IMAX and stuff. So he's like, yeah, he's going to play a big role in it. He's going to do this thing, that thing. So I'm sure that all exists somewhere on a hard drive or in Dave's head, or whatever. I can't imagine him shifting a character that took everyone by storm. Maybe the second biggest well-received new character besides Grogu on Disney live-action TV.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Who else?
I mean, I would think Mando would be.
I would say that before season 3. I feel like people have soured a little on Mando.
I mean, fair, but also just like, look at like how many Baylan Skoll Halloween costumes there are right now.
Well, Halloween hasn't happened yet.
But I'm saying, like, are we really thinking that, like the same as we did when Mando came out?
No, you're right. You're right.
I mean,
you're right.
I definitely think that your argument is that he was very well received among fans. That's absolutely true. I don't think he was quite as like it's almost different. You know what I mean? The way that like Baby Yoda and Mandalorian took over. I mean, the show was called The Mandalorian, and there was marketing everywhere with his face on it and stuff. Obviously, Ahsoka has this guy peppered in. You know what I mean? It's not called Baylan Skoll, and it's this huge hit series. I almost feel like Ahsoka might even be a better, well-received character, where like lots of families are watching being like, we love Ahsoka now, and it's like, she's being received well. So is Baylan, it's just that I think we're excited about him because he's a villain, a good villain,
Yeah. Just through and through, just a well-written character, a well-performed character, cool look, awesome fighting. Gave you like little like hints of Palpatine Vader with his temptation to Sabine, and there's a lot of memorable moments.
Or that like Loki sort of, where you're like, oh, he's bad, but I love him.
Right.
Because he does the right thing sometimes, or whatever.
Yeah, and he has a sense of sympathy, and he doesn't look back at everything as terrible. He just knows that he doesn't want what has existed, and it's it's a very unique villain. And how long have I been saying on this podcast? How long have we been saying on this podcast Star Wars has a villain problem? Then we get this guy, and frickin' Ray Stevenson passes away. So, It's tough. I think we both have come to the conclusion, and
it'd be like Giancarlo Esposito dying after season 1 of Mando.
Yeah,
I know. Like, what?
I know.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think we both have come to the conclusion that a recast is probably going to happen. So I just hope whoever takes it gets treated well, because you're coming into a tough spot. And honors, the great Ray Stevenson, because I've liked that guy for such a long time. I'm actually going to rewatch the Punisher movie he did probably this weekend. But we'll expand upon this as we learn more. But any final thoughts before I take us home?
No, I don't think so. I think I've said all my piece on this situation as best I can, given where we're at.
Yeah, and I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation. And please let us know your thoughts. Do you think they're going to recast? Do you think they're going to have him sort of written off, write off? Maybe do... I know people have suggested, they're going to continue him with books, comics. They could do that. But I just think with that movie coming up, there's probably things already lined up, especially with how many of these series are supposed to be involved and intertwined. But definitely let us know your thoughts on all of this, including Will of the Force. Hit the comments on YouTube, hit us up on social media, email us, whatever you got to do. And of course, if you're a patron on the Discord, let's chat it up and have a good time. But thank you to everybody for listening and watching and being a part of what we got going on here. A special thanks to our generals and spice runners on Patreon: Carmelo, John RISI, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick KRATZ, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Ramori, Matt Heath, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sneaky Zebra, Aaron Ellington, Colin Cormier, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, Diana and Dave Hornack, and the Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Michael Fry, and the THEFORTWORTHIAN, and all our patrons in the base, and just everybody. However you take on you take in TRB, thank you very, very much. James, where are you at on social media?
You can find me at Myra Trunks.
And Lacey at Lacey Gilleran, it's Lacey Gilleran on TikTok, and Johnny Hoey for me, and my movie pod, Just Like the Movies. I believe in about a week or so, or 2 weeks, we're doing the original Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween. I'm excited to do that. All right, that is it. We hope everyone has a wonderful week, and remember, TRB Live is switching back to Thursday night. We are not off season, but there's no live Star Wars show, so we're going back to Thursday nights. So 8:30 East, same spot, Thursday nights, and then on your podcast feeds late Thursday night, but into Friday morning. So thank you everybody very much. James, good times, and for everybody, enjoy your weeks, and we'll see you next time right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.